Hello and welcome to Culture Illiterate, a podcast where four friends overthink movies about cars and family. I am Jake, and I will harshly judge just about anyone that does not like going to the movies. With me are my friends and fellow co-hosts and family.
My name is Jason, and I love chicken parm. I think it's the top 3 sandwich of all time.
My name is Matt, and I want to try making a steak sandwich. Probably going to try to do that this weekend.
I don't have a food thing. Fuck you all. Except Jake. Jake's fine. I'm Sean, and my fun fact is that I'm definitely in this movie that we're going to be talking about. I am the main character, Sean, also played by Sean. This is correct. Do not fact check it.
You still look younger than the lead in this movie. So do you guys have any recs? I mean, I know we kind of do because before we started recording, we were talking about two of mine, but
Yeah,
I wanted to shout out a couple movies that aren't getting enough love: The Monkey and Mickey 17.
Absolutely.
In different ways.
Double down on those.
Yeah.
I felt like I had a different rec too. What was it?
My full rec is definitely The Monkey. That one's it's just so goofy and funny, and I loved it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was so funny. I didn't know anything about it when I went to see it. I just heard that it was good. And I knew it was based off of a Stephen King story. That was all I knew. I didn't realize, I wasn't expecting it to be as fun and funny as it was, which it was very.
It's getting really mixed audience reception, and it's baffling to me because I just don't.
I thought it was really fun.
I feel like part of it is people who went into it expecting it to be very stereotypically Stephen King-y, where it's just spooky horror and that's it. This one was more goofy. I mean, it opens up with a guy using a flamethrower on a store to burn down a monkey, and he's saying, "Die, you stupid son of a whore."
and there's the running bit. My favorite part of the movie, and I don't necessarily want to say how it turns out, but that everyone's dying in this town, and this cheer squad just appears at all these death scenes every time they find a new body. I don't know. I think it's got a bit of a Malignant thing going on where there's a lot of people that want to act too cool for it and act as if it's not supposed to be campy and act as if it's not aware of itself when I think Theo James, the lead, is giving this really great but self-aware but not in an annoying way performance.
Yeah, and also I think when a movie starts with your protagonist as a child, sometimes it can kind of be a drag. Oh, you got to get through this part.
But Tatiana Maslany is so good in those sections.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is and then usually it's when it cuts to present day, you're okay, now the movie's really starting. But honestly, the introduction where it's the main characters, the twins as kids, it was just as entertaining then. It was very funny and entertaining then in that part of the film as well. So yeah, great movie. I was also expecting it to be a more kind of Stephen King thriller kind of thing, but I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't. Not that I would have been upset at the alternative, but it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All the kills were pretty gory. There was one kill I missed because I had to go to the bathroom, and hearing the description of it,
I felt it, man.
I want to put a curse on my bladder because
it was the one
of the best kills in the movie.
Yeah,
there's a shot of the aftermath in the trailer from it, actually.
Oh, you missed the
shotgun.
Yeah, I missed the shotgun
coming
one.
out of the out of the closet and killing the real estate lady. Oh,
and the dad just being everything's fine.
Everything's fine, covered in blood and just
and then the cops we're gonna need you to stay in town for a little while, and he's no.
Please, no.
Yeah, and then Mickey 17, getting more. I would say I've
really?
seen more consistently positive buzz for it, but it's also bombing at the box office. So by the time this comes out, we're recording this the Thursday before or the Wednesday where it releases. So if you're listening to this when it's new, it'll still be playing some places. Go see Mickey 17 because it's a fantastic, hilarious sci-fi good time. Both very, very real, but also just a damn good time. So try to make that feel a little bit less and go see it. Sean.
Yeah, and it is.
I have plans to see it either this weekend or the
You've
next.
got to. It's so good. Like
I might watch it
genuinely,
again. I might watch it again this Saturday. To be honest, it's that good.
it's
Mark Ruffalo is a
so
comedic
good.
genius.
He is. I
Mark
still need to watch
Ruffalo
Poor
was so
Things.
good. I had no idea.
Oh,
Mark
that's what I
Ruffalo was
put.
in it.
I watched Poor Things and I was like, oh, I did not respect this man's game enough.
I didn't realize
He's
that Mark
fucking
Ruffalo
hilarious
was
and he's
in
so
it,
good.
but oh god, he's such a good, funny villain.
I saw a clip of him on some late night show talking about it because Mickey 17 got delayed for like a couple of years, and he was talking about like filming it and thinking, ooh, did I go too big? And then he was like, and then we watched the movie at the premiere, and I was like, oh, I was too subtle. We made a documentary.
They really did, honestly, though. It was a
Yeah.
little frightening how real to life certain parts of it felt.
Oh my god, especially the beginning. The beginning was like, oh my god, am I watching like a 60-minute documentary right now? This is incredibly surreal.
Yeah. So Sean, please go see it for your own sake.
Yeah, because we
But
can't say anything about the movie because you didn't see it.
yeah,
You want to
and
spoil
honestly,
everybody else who hasn't seen it either? All 10 of the people
By the
listening to us?
like,
By the time this comes out, most people who want to see it have seen it already, except for you. It's only doing you a disservice. In fact, we should spoil the movie right now.
It's only been out for a week and I haven't seen it yet because I watched The Monkey.
it was definitely one of the best movies I've seen in a while.
It's definitely the top of my list so far.
Yeah,
it's my early favorite of 2025.
I'm glad it lived up to my expectations because normally I don't try to have any.
Excited.
But as soon as I saw Robert Pattinson speak in that like shriveled little voice, I'm like, I am sold.
It's so good, and it's such a Robert Pattinson thing because like, there's no reason he couldn't just do like a regular American accent for his character, but he sticks to his guns of just being amazing and being like, no, this is a character, so I'm gonna give him his own little voice. Be silly with it.
Like he doesn't try to just, match the character with his body language. He also tries to match the voice with it.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Which I really appreciate about him.
I know. He really commits to the role. That's why when he reaches like the age of like 50, he should be a voice actor.
He should be a voice actor already.
I know. I still haven't watched his performance in The Boy and the Heroine. Gotta watch that.
Excuse me? The Boy and the what now?
Did I say it right? Is it heroin? Heron?
Oh, Heron.
The Boy and the Heroine.
I said heroin.
Is either a female hero or a very addictive drug.
In which I don't think anyone I know has tried it. I know someone who's tried crack.
Well, anyway, what Robert Pattinson should really be is my friend.
I totally agree. He's in my phone case. I literally have a picture of him in my phone case.
Don't you also have a picture of him in your car?
I sure do. And on a pillow that Jake gave me.
Oh,
It's the meme of him in that like Adidas tracksuit standing there. I love that picture. I love Robert Pattinson. But also other Rex, while we're on the topic, man.
No.
Hey man, hey Sean, that wasn't cool. That wasn't cool, dude.
No.
Anyway, I recommend the movie Saturday Night. I watched that on Netflix recently. It was a pretty good movie. Pretty solid movie. That's all I can really say about it. It was funny, it was entertaining. That's that. And also, I recommend a band called Good Terms released a cover of the song Call Me by Blondie. It's a really good cover. They're like an emo-y, post-hardcore kind of band. So it's very different from the original, but the original's also good. So if you don't know the original, Call Me by Blondie, you should listen to it. Blondie's great. Great band.
Ooh, I'm gonna recommend. I've recommended this once before. I think when we talked about going to the Arena Bowl last year, but I'm gonna recommend arena and or indoor football. The two best leagues to watch are AF1, which is basically the old AFL, and the IFL, which is similar, but in my opinion not as good because it doesn't have these crazy rebound nets that the ball can bounce off of. But it's really accessible and free to watch, and it's a sport that at any given year could cease to exist. So if you're listening to this and you want a really fun arcade-like version of the game of football that sometimes plays championships in shopping malls and has stadiums out in the middle of fields and is just really fun and cheap and free to watch, that.
Hasn't one of the teams already disbanded?
You're going to need to be way more specific than that. So many teams have disbanded.
I'm talking about this year in particular.
Kinda. It would, if I got into all the weird money shenanigans, we'd be here all night. But there is currently 8 teams playing that seem relatively stable at the moment in the AF1.
You know what? 8 teams is better than 0.
Yes, I would agree.
Even though the Philadelphia Souls have yet to be back, it's really sad.
That
Yeah,
does
that's
make me sad. I went to a lot of Soul games back in the day.
Went to Arena Bowl 30.
Yeah, one of 2 that I've been to, 30 and 33.
Arena Bowl 30 where the Soul won. We beat the Tampa Bay Storm. I have a towel from that game right up. I can't quite reach it, but it's like.
And you bumped into James Romaine.
I did bump into James Romaine.
Does he look
What
like
a legend.
lettuce?
He wore number 25. He did not look like lettuce. He looked like a tall black man. And that's what he was. And he bumped into me and went, "My bad." So he was my favorite player because of that.
I'm big on Cedric Thomas. You know, you know.
You know.
I don't know.
Who?
If you think about it, you could probably know.
He's probably number 4. Hey, 4.
Hey, 4.
All right, if no one's got anything else,
Once you mention the movie, I have 2 fun facts.
oh, okay, what are they?
It
They have to
never
do
ends.
with the movie.
Oh, this movie. Oh, I thought you meant. Oh,
This was-
my bad. I
It has to
misunderstood
do with-
what you said. I
It
misunderstood.
has this
All right.
specific movie. I have 2 fun facts about it.
Okay, well, this movie for today, released on June 16th, 2006. It is Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. It is considered the 3rd main installment of the Fast and Furious saga, but it features an entirely new lead and setting and love interests and everything, so it functions more as a spin-off. It was written by Chris Morgan and directed by the saga's most important architect, Justin Lin, with cinematography from Stephen F. Winden. Lucas Black plays new lead Sean Boswell, the world's oldest high schooler, while Bow Wow plays a human being who willingly goes by Twinkie. Brian Goodman plays Sean's father, Major Boswell. Natalie Kelly plays Neela, the love interest of the movie. Sung Kang returns as Han, a role he first played in Better Luck Tomorrow. Jason Tobin, who was also in Better Luck Tomorrow, plays a new character, Earl, and the uncle-nephew villain duo of Yakuza boss Kamada and DK are played by Shinichi Chiba and Brian T, respectively.
All right, my 2 fun facts. My first fun fact is why did they escape my mind right as I was about to talk about them? My first fun fact is that the producer of this movie is the same person who produced all of the Sonic movies.
Shout out.
And he's also produced a large portion of these Fast and Furious movies. So there's a big big connection there for me. I can see where this man.
So he's had a big impact on our lives.
The the second
Why
thing
did you
is
tell
that
us this guy's name? This guy who's so important to all our childhoods.
I think his name is it starts with an N and I can't remember. Let
Starts
me
with an
find
A.
it real quick. But my while I find this, there it is. His name is Neil H. Moritz. My second fun fact is that apparently while filming this movie in Japan, they had a stand-in quote unquote director who was supposed to act as Justin Lin, because apparently in Japan at the time they didn't give out like what is it? They don't provide permission to film in places in general, from what my understanding was from reading up on it. So essentially you just have to go there and record. And apparently during one of the times they wanted to do something downtown in Shibuya, um, I believe it was, but they had a random guy there that was always on like the set and everything, whose apparently his main job was to sit in, and if they ever asked to act as Justin Lin and say he's the director of the movie, so that Justin Lin wouldn't go to jail.
That's
And then
nuts.
the guy, the police ended up going after them, and the one guy who was the stand-in for Justin Lin went to jail for a night.
Aw. Well, hopefully he got compensated well.
He was apparently paid for it, so.
Hey, if nothing else, he'll always have a good story at the bar.
That's
I
true. I
just-
got arrested for impersonating a very famous director. I got paid for it.
Yeah, I got arrested for doing my job.
Yeah, so here
Just
it
to
is. It was
impersonate a director.
the studio hired a fall guy essentially who stepped in when the police came in so that the police would arrest him as the director instead. And
The Fall
apparently
Guy, Ryan Gosling.
Yep, exactly. It was specifically because they were shooting in Shibuya, which was like the most crowded place that they could have shot anything.
So Matt, you said that this was the first Fast movie you had ever seen and was one of your
Yes.
favorites, and you were a little bit you don't have to go into specifics since we're just getting started, but you said you were a little nervous that it wasn't going to hold up. Did you still have a good time with it?
I still had a good time with it.
Okay.
The thing is about this movie was I watched this movie a lot. I remember little to nothing about it though. The only thing I vividly remember about this movie was the last racing scene with the down the mountain. I felt like, oh my god, this is fucking cool. This is badass. But besides that, I didn't really remember anything. I remember Hong dying. I was really sad about that. And I realized now it was because it was like the one Asian lead. I thought he was a badass and he's dead. I'm like, oh no, there's only white people left.
Hey, and Bow Wow.
Shout out to Bow Wow. That's a friend right there. That's
Bow
a
Wow
homie
is
right
so
there.
funny. I
Neela's
love
not
Bow Wow.
white.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, Neela. You said
Oh.
Bow Wow.
Sorry.
You said,
I
you're talking about Twinkie.
thought you said he
But I
was
mean,
not
I don't-
white, referring
I think
to Bow
that
Wow.
mostly just means not.
No, I
the
know what
only
you
lead
mean.
that
I know what he
sorta
means.
could potentially be similar looking to him. It's not, but
In a movie called Tokyo Drift.
there's at the end of which has a
I-
southern white high schooler played by a 35-year-old.
Dude, his accent is.
Heights.
Dude, I want to say one thing real quick. I think Lucas Black did a decent job as the lead, but like, unlike like Tobey Maguire in like the Spider-Man movies, where he wins you over with the acting, like you can't help but see him as like at minimum like a 30-year-old man, which is weird because he was probably at least like 20 something when he had this role, but he just looks so much older. I'm pretty sure he was born in like 1982, so he's 20 something. But
He
looks
definitely
like
doesn't
a
look like no goddamn high
middle-aged
schooler.
dad. Dude,
And it's what makes it even weirder to cast someone who doesn't even remotely look like a high schooler, and just in general to set this movie around high schoolers is there's no precedent of that in the franchise. Like the first two movies followed like adults in their 30s.
Yeah, and then this one's just high
It's very
schooler.
funny that this movie that was like also involves the Yakuza was like the one that was like, what if they were all kids?
Yeah.
It's really weird. Also, his hairline is already so high up that it can't be covered with a headband. So I felt really bad for the guy.
He's got a big forehead.
He's got a really big forehead, and that's
Big
coming
old
from someone
forehead.
who does have a big forehead. Like, if I'm saying you have a big forehead, then it's really big.
Well, it's like high and wide.
Is it because his hairline is already going up there?
I don't know. I don't know. So it's
I don't
difficult
know.
to say.
It is difficult to
Maybe,
say.
I mean,
I
that's
feel like
it.
this.
Like, maybe I'm sorry. What?
I was just gonna say, I feel like this is totally unnecessary because it's not like he's a horrible person or anything, or his
Oh yeah,
performance
we're
was
kind of
bad.
like
It's just
talking.
something
Well,
that I
it wins
can't
me
help but
over.
notice when I'm watching the movie. It's
Kind
this
of
guy
just
who's
like
supposed to
bullying this
be.
guy for no reason.
He's like
But
he could be like passable as a college student, but he's supposed to be a high schooler, and that sentence, that statement that he's a high schooler, it just took me out of it because he doesn't
See,
look nowhere near like a high schooler.
and
In fact, a lot of
exactly.
the cast doesn't look like a high school, don't look like high school kids.
No, they do not.
Like you say he could be passable maybe as a college student, and even that would be kind of a stretch to be honest.
I feel
No.
like it'd be better if they said he was like an older, like an adult going back to college.
Yeah, that would make more like the Goofy movies type shit, you know?
Yeah, or also like when he's with his dad, you can convince me that those two are brothers rather
yeah, I was
than
gonna say,
father and son
or like coworkers.
or co-workers.
But I think
Their
it
age,
makes.
it doesn't look like it's like that much of an age gap between the two where you can just go like, oh, they're father and son.
It kind of comes around to me though. It comes around to me though in that like it gives Tokyo Drift a really unique setting in the Fast franchise, like having high school in air quotes, high school age leads and being set in a physical space that's much different in Japan. And then we will get to in the future why this released in 06, but like timeline wise, it's actually set a few years later. It creates this weird atmosphere, like all the retcons that we have to address as a result of this movie in future episodes of this podcast, talking about future movies, create a feeling for Tokyo Drift to me that is so like
Unique.
it stands out in a way that makes it to me pretty special in the franchise. And other like there's the obvious things of just having different characters that it's focused on instead of like the Torettos and the O'Connors, but it just creates such an anachronistic feel
Well,
that I
it's
really
especially
enjoy.
it's especially refreshing, especially when you consider the movies after Tokyo Drift, where they slowly, like, even though cars are still heavily involved, it's not really about racing anymore
Yeah,
after
I mean,
Tokyo Drift.
it
So
does get away from that.
exactly. So then that's why this movie does feel special because the whole thing about this movie is the racing. Like the racing is how everything goes, right? Instead of duels outside the saloon, they race.
I would also add to that the racing scenes in this are actually pretty good considering
Yeah.
how they like visually how they do the shots and everything and how they get it from different perspectives. I really like, and on top of that, like the setting itself makes it so pretty half the time.
Yeah, like the Tokyo streets, especially when they're racing, were very brightly colored, a lot of neon lights, and the cars themselves are also very colorful. So it's just like a feast for the eyes.
Like
And
the
the racing
Hulk
scenes also
car.
exactly. Exactly. I thought someone punched that car when I first saw it, and I'm like, what the fuck happened to it? But it was pretty cool. But yeah, the color of the movie is very well done. It definitely has a lot of personality that makes it stand out compared to the rest of the movies. I don't know if this movie is what started that like you remember like back in the day in the early 2000s, like there was this thing about like street racing in Tokyo, and there was like a lot of video games around that time too that were about that, like Need for Speed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
there was like a thing where like like Tokyo was like the place to go for drifting, and I
And
wonder if this
for
movie
like street racing.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if this movie started it or just took inspiration from that. I have no idea, but
It's kind of like
it
what
definitely
came first, chicken or the egg.
exactly. But because of the whole vibe, it definitely was extremely nostalgic. Because not only have I seen this movie before, but I have played many a racing game in which that takes place in Tokyo or has Tokyo as the stage.
Yeah, and it does, like you said, like it's good. I like you calling it nostalgic because like even as someone who like I didn't watch this movie until later on, like within the past like 5, 6 years was the first time I watched this movie, so like I don't have like a childhood attachment to it at all, but it's still like, and this can be said about like I'd say just about every Fast and Furious movie, but it feels so much like its time, so it still feels nostalgic even if you didn't watch it like when it came out or growing up. It just still feels like the past and feels like
I
a
mean,
time
like,
capsule in some way.
I feel like
Exactly.
that a lot of that comes from just for one, the music in this movie is a really good
Absolutely.
choice. Like, I feel like this is one of the few Fast and Furious movies where I can say like the music stands out a lot more than usual, just because of like they theme it to the setting and they do a pretty good job of that. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah,
like on
like
top of
oh, you go first.
I was gonna say, but like on top of that, yeah, it's just the movie feels like a product of its time, but not in a bad way. Just
Oh, not at all. It like not in an outdated way, though it does feel outdated in a sense, but just
I
in a
wouldn't say
like
it's
a
outdated because
not even outdated yet, but
it's not
just
like a
like
frowned upon era of time.
yeah.
It's I would say more nostalgic.
Yeah, it's outdated in the sense that it does feel like a product of the past, but it's not outdated in that like it doesn't feel lesser because of that.
No, I
Exactly.
mean, I for my money, I think this is easily the most dated Fast movie. I don't think that's an insult, but I do think it is the most like
Yeah,
all
I would
like the
Oh
agree.
yeah. No,
one
no, no. I
through
don't.
three are all very much from the year they were made, but this one I think more than any, it has first of all on the negative side, it does have the most like yikes worthy dialogue of those
Oh
first
yeah,
three or any other really
there's
in
one
terms of
point
like
that I want to
the
bring
movie
up.
starts off with like racing for possession of a high school girl, and there's just a lot of it is easily the most problematic in
That
that regard or whatever.
that's also a very 2000s thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
I mean the
Two high
technology
school guys
this features the
racing
most
each other for the gun.
technology of the time. Like this has a lot of 2006 like like iPod type phones, like the
yeah.
phones they're using,
Like
the
okay.
cars, the fashion. It is easily the most definitively its
Yeah.
time period movie. So it is the most dated. So again, ironically, it's technically retroactively not even set in '06, but it's not a bad thing. It's just it was made
No.
then, and you can
I
tell, and it has so much style. So that's how the reason you can notice because Justin Lin put so much style into it, and I think probably put a lot of work into getting the culture right, which I know
oh
nothing
yeah.
about.
yeah.
Everything from the color grading to the shots to the color, like and even like the music, it is full of personality, and because of that, it really stands out. And I think a perfect way to describe this movie is that this movie is basically more than the other two that we watched already, a time capsule into the past. Because, as you said, we talked about before, this movie is dated, but not like the negative sense. It's more of like the what did people think were cool? What did people think was cool at the time, right? And I feel like this movie is a perfect encapsulation of like, what's considered like badass cars, street weight racing, women, fortunately, and Tokyo.
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Now, I think it was Jake mentioned some of the questionable dialogue in this movie. there's one specific thing that I wanted to bring up before I forgot about that. Which is one of my, like, it makes me laugh every time. It's one of my favorite parts, but it's so corny and so bad. Is when the main character Sean first meets Twinkie, right? That's Bow Wow's character, right? It's Twinkie.
Yeah,
Yes.
Twinkie.
I think it's right when they first meet, and he's like, "Do you like Michael Jordan?" I love Michael Jordan. And then he like pulls out a pair of Air Jordans or something. And it's like, all right, there were definitely some non-black writers in a room going, all right, what do black teenagers talk about?
Michael Jordan.
And they were like, basketball sneakers. That's it. That's all we got. That's just always so funny to me because I'm like, oh God, this. I do like not to shit on this movie because I do enjoy it, but it's like moments like that where I'm like, oh, it's funny because it's outdated, but it's also in poor taste a little bit. Not even not in poor taste, but just like you could have tried harder to give this.
I know
black teenager more characteristics.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad. I know the one part that I always laugh at the beginning is when they're doing the street race for the high schooler in the beginning, and that part being uncomfortable, but the part where Sean starts winning the race and the girl just looks at her boyfriend and goes, "I thought you loved me."
Yeah, that's a good one.
He loses and starts, like, while he's losing, he starts crying in the car. He, like, starts tearing up, and I paused it at that moment. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Which, like, already such an extraordinary situation of, like, them street racing for the love of a woman. Like, not even a woman, of a teenage girl. Mind you, they're also teenagers, so it's not like it's weird that it's a teenage girl, but either way, like, that's already such an out there, like, concept, and then it's like, she looks at that man and with full confidence says, "I thought you loved me," because he's losing a street race to some random guy.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good place to get into, like, the actual kind of story of the movie, because that's where it starts. So the movie starts off in Oro Valley, Arizona, with Sean Boswell, who's like a troubled high schooler, racing his classmate Clay in their respective cars, a 1971 Chevy Monte Carlo and a 2003 SRT 10 Dodge Viper, where they end up ramming into each other, with Clay crashing his Viper into a cylinder pipe, and Sean winning the race but wrecking his car. This is again the race for Clay's girlfriend. So Clay's family is wealthy and is able to escape him, get him away without any punishment. But Sean, who has a record. His mom, he gets expelled from school, and his mom decides, I'm gonna send the second most destructive little boy that the U.S. has ever sent to Japan. He's their problem now, to live with his estranged father, the U.S. Navy lieutenant stationed in Tokyo, in order to avoid jail time. He befriends fellow military brat Twinkie, who introduces him to drag racing and drift
Michael
racing.
Jordan.
Yes, Twinkie, the aforementioned Michael Jordan fan. They drive to an underground car meet in Twinkie's 2005 Hulk-themed Volkswagen Touran, which is the ugliest car I've ever seen in my life. Sean gets into a confrontation with Takashi, who is also known as the Drift King, or DK, over Takashi's girlfriend, Neela. Sean agrees to race Takashi's Nissan Fairlady Z33 and a Silvia S15 Spec S, lent to him by retired drift racer Han, who was a character first introduced in Justin Lin's indie film Better Luck Tomorrow. Liked working with him, liked working with the actor and the character. So when Lin got the job for Tokyo Drift, he brought the character and actor back, thus tying Better Luck Tomorrow into Fast Canon.
Check out our episode on Better Luck Tomorrow.
True. Thank you, Jason. Sean loses the race and severely damages the Sylvia due to his unfamiliarity with drifting. To repay his debt, Sean agrees to work for Han. Han begins to teach Sean how to drift, whom he refers to as the only person he'd ever seen stand up to DK, who is connected to the Yakuza, not that Sean realized, through his uncle Kamada. Sean masters drifting, practicing in a 2006 Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 9, and gains further respect after defeating DK's lieutenant, Morimoto. Han and Sean become good friends. So we already talked about the racing being really good in this movie. I think the reason it's the best so far is the drifting. I'm not familiar if, like, they kind of act as if the concept of drifting a car is completely unheard of in the Western Hemisphere. I don't know if that's a thing that, like, does come from Japan or what, but that always struck me as a little odd.
I'm almost certain that even if it does come from Japan, that it had definitely traveled farther.
It seems weird to me that this guy who's really into cars has, like, never heard of drifting. That said, the introduction of drifting into the races, I think, is largely why it's so much more fun to watch. It adds a sense of danger and, like it's so much more dynamic than just going fast in a forward motion.
Also because they're, like, most of the places
at a time.
Most of the places that they're doing the driving in are, like, pretty narrow and tight spaces, so it makes it more like it makes it really dramatic and really kind of cool, because the entire time you're kind of like, it feels very claustrophobic in the way that they're, like, trying to drive around all these tight corners, and they don't really, because I guess you could say that, like, since they're in Tokyo, a lot of it's supposed to be really tight spaces because it's a very big, very condensed urban area. So, like, seeing them driving around in these places is, like, it just makes it a lot more cool to watch.
I could definitely agree to that. Especially with, like, the camera work, right? One, it goes very fast, and two, it's very close up to the cars and to the drivers, and so it adds to that claustrophobic feeling.
Yeah.
The other thing I think worth talking about is them bringing Han back. This is a reason why I think it's really worth watching Better Luck Tomorrow if you're going to watch these movies, is this, watching it that way and just watching it release order, I feel like that is one of the biggest moments of character growth you've seen, because Han in that movie is a complete, like, burnout who's kind of wasting his life. And if you watch that movie and then watch Tokyo Drift, it is very clear Han has been through some things in Tokyo Drift, and it's just some nice added background of exactly what that is. And you can even tell that there's some stuff that happens between movies that you haven't seen that has led him here, because he's much more, like, he's older, he's more reserved, and he feels like he has, like, wisdom to share. Like, he sees Sean, he sees kind of himself, the Han that you know from Better Luck Tomorrow, in Sean, and the things that Sean's doing, and it makes a lot of sense why he would take this dude who's from way, for one, and Han, you see Han's background from the States, and you see his background as a person, and understand, like, why he would take Sean under his wing as this dude who just randomly moved there and is already starting shit.
Yeah.
And there's just little good subtleties in the performance, like them always having Han snacking, that is a good callback to the fact that Han was always smoking in the first movie, but you're not going to show that now. And so he just kind of has this little, like, oral fixation. And Han's also just that dude.
He is that dude.
He's
definitely mellowed out compared to, his younger days.
I mean, because he's not doing blow and pulling guns on people.
No, he's not scaring people either. It doesn't, well, at least doesn't look like it. But yeah, like, honestly, it was fascinating watching him here after getting to know his backstory, because obviously I didn't know that Better Luck Tomorrow was part of the Fast and Furious series. So Han was basically like a nothing character. He was just like the cool Asian guy. But now he's actually a character, because Better Luck Tomorrow is part of the Fast universe, which is still a little bewildering because they're so totally different. But it's awesome. Pretty cool.
think it helps having a person like Han who's just cool and likable, though, because Sean is probably just the least likable lead so far we've had. Maybe not
The
counting Better
least
Luck Tomorrow.
memorable.
But,
I would say
like,
he's.
compared to, like,
I don't
Dom
think
and
he's
Brian and
unlikable.
Rome.
I just think he's very, very forgettable.
Yeah,
he is
well,
very forgettable.
and I think that it's not so much that he's not likable, it's just that the other guys are more likable, like the other leads
Exactly,
in their
like
movies.
Now, granted, some of this is a good thing because while it's an adult actor, he is playing a high schooler, but he lacks the, like, first of all, he's just kind of a douchebag, Sean, as a character, and while, like, Dom, Brian, and Rome as leads have all had their character flaws, I mean, Brian was a cop, it doesn't get douchier than that, but, like, he has the least level of, like, magnetism to him. There's not any, like, real, he doesn't, again, he's playing a high schooler, but he doesn't have the sex appeal going for him, frankly, that, like, Dom, Brian, and Rome do.
Thank God.
Because they decided to have this 35-year-old man play an 18-year-old. But, and he just kind of sucks. He's like the person that you would have hated in high school. Like, you get that he's kind of picked on because he's not, like, rich or whatever, but he's clearly just, like, there's nothing necessarily initially likable about him. So I think it really softens his edges that you, like, pair him up with Han, who's just a really cool guy.
super chill.
Yeah, like, you'd
Effortlessly
want to
cool.
hang out with Han.
Yeah, like even Twinkie's Twinkie's a very memorable character. I like Twinkie
Yeah, I like
a
Twinkie.
lot.
He doesn't
And
really
he's
have a
a
ton
much more
to him,
interesting
but he's
character.
likable.
He's a much more interesting character, like with him basically trying to scam people, especially like he gets beaten up for selling like the fake iPad. Or no, it was a broken iPad. It was a broken iPad.
iPod, Matt. Remember the
Oh,
time
iPod.
period?
Much iPads
Oh,
didn't
shit.
exist
Whoops.
yet.
Yeah, that's
Wow,
true.
Sean.
iPads do
Gosh,
not exist yet.
Whoops.
Gosh, Matt. Get with the
iPads?
times.
iPads weren't on the market till what, 2011?
No idea, but there's no way they were around in 06.
No, they definitely weren't.
So Sean eventually asks Neela out on a date.
Oh my God.
What?
March 11th, 2011. I was right on the head.
Hey, 2 days.
2 days ago.
Behind today, March
Yeah.
13th, and 11 years, 14 years. I mean, I can do math. So
It's
Sean eventually.
2022, fellas.
Shut
It's
the fuck
2020.
up.
I wish
I
it was
messed
2022.
Oh no, Jake's
We
killed
dying.
Jake.
Are we losing you, Private?
Do we not have to do this
You're not losing
podcast
my
anymore?
privates. So sorry, I had the coughing fit from laughing.
They're easy to lose.
Shut the
It's
fuck
like
you.
finding the needle in a haystack. Heyo.
Heyo.
Get
How do you know
got.
I call my pubes the haystack? So Sean eventually asks out Neela, who seems to have horrible taste in men. Neela explains that after her mother had died, she moved in with DK's grandmother. And I write DK assaults Sean the next day, telling him to stay away from Neela. Neela then leaves DK the following day. After Kamada reprimands DK for allowing Han to steal from him, DK and Morimoto confront Han, Sean, and Neela, who flee after Twinkie creates a distraction. DK and Morimoto pursue the trio, with Morimoto crashing and Han buying Sean and Neela time to escape. The chase ends with Sean and Neela's Lancer Evo 9 crashes, while Han's 1994 Veilside RX-7 is broadsided by a night. I love that it has the detail of the car that kills Han. Is blindsided by a 1992 Mercedes-Benz W140 S-Class sedan and explodes. DK later draws a gun on Sean, but Sean's father shows up and draws on DK. The standoff ends when Neela enters and agrees to leave with DK. Sean and his father make amends, while Twinkie gives money to Sean to compensate Kamada for the stolen funds. Sean delivers the cash to Kamada and challenges DK to a drift race, with the loser leaving Tokyo for good. Kamada agrees on the condition they downhill drift a mountain pass that only DK has ever successfully descended. Sean and Han's crew restore a 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback that Sean's father recovered and tune it to drift specifications, making use of the engine and other components wrecked from the wrecked Sylvia. Okay. I was gonna say let's talk about Neela, but I don't really know what I have to say. She's kind of there to like also reflect on. She's the love interest for Sean. She also feels like an outsider in Japan, because she's not fully Japanese. But like, there's really not. I don't know. Maybe you guys have more. I don't really have a lot to say about Neela. She never comes back, and she's kind of just an obligatory character, I think.
In that sense, they are the perfect, like love interest couple because they're both just as forgettable.
That's pretty true.
Like, I guess I feel bad for the whole idea of, like, what's his face, DK using her the entire time as like, my family saved you, be in a relationship with me. Which feels kind of grody the entire time, but DK is supposed to be grody anyways. But like, yeah, she's forgettable outside of being like the love interest stereotype that has to be there.
It felt like she only existed because they needed a love interest.
Yeah, it's a shame because it's kind of 2 movies in a row now where that's kind of been the case. And there's like just not tremendous chemistry between them. I'm not as much of a Sean hater as you guys seem to be. I know he said he's the least likable lead we've had, but he does kind of grow on me. I think the movie does a good job with like it takes over an hour of this movie, which is less than 2 hours long, to meet the Yakuza boss, to meet DK's uncle. And in my mind, that's a good thing because the movie's kind of more concerned with just like Sean's growth as a character than it is with like a plot in a way that I like.
It's like Jabba the Hutt. Like you spend the whole first movie hearing about him, and then you finally see him.
Well, I just like it because it lets it focus on Sean because you kind of have a lot of digging to get out, put a hole to dig out of. Because by the end of the movie, I do like Sean. It's a really cornball performance. And he's not like necessarily a great character, but there's something for me that just kind of wins me over. Like, and that's the case for a lot of this movie. Like I said, a lot of it feels like it should be aged worse than it is, and a lot of it feels like it. I couldn't fault anyone for not liking any of these things, but for me, it just kind of it's all such a strange choice that it clicks together and works.
Yeah, to me, Sean as a main character benefits from the fact that the movie is fun and likable. Like, to me, I'm pretty, like, I don't dislike Sean as a character, but I would say I'm pretty neutral on him. Like,
I'd say I'm a pretty good character. Fuck you.
You're like below average.
Hey, Sean.
Let's be honest here.
Sean.
You're a good supporting role, but you'll be obnoxious as a main character.
Sean, I hope you die tonight. I hope you die.
I can't die. I have to get better at jerking off so I can cut Matt's head off.
I don't care. I don't respect you, and I don't like the things you say to me.
All right, let's talk about the more important thing.
Killing Matt.
I wasn't quite finished. Just to wrap up that thought. Well, I think, like you said, like by the end of it, I think I do kind of like Sean, but also like overall, like I'm pretty neutral on him. But I think he benefits greatly from the fact that the movie's just fun and enjoyable. So like, it's easier to like the main character when the movie is also good.
And I think it helps that he's not trying to be Brian or Dom or Rome.
Yeah.
Like if they had a new lead and they were so clearly a knockoff of one of the people we already liked, like it's the same reason why I think Rome works in Too Fast, Too Furious is he's not trying to replace Dom. He's just a different character.
And that's why it works when they're later in both movies.
Yeah. And
or
Sean,
later both in the same movie, rather.
It adds to my fascination with the franchise that the third movie just randomly has an entirely different like cast of characters, including one that's a returner from an indie film, and then most of them most of them are just cameos in the future if they show up at all. But I think the most important thing in this chunk to talk about though is Han's death. For my money, 4 movies in now, Han's death is the most like emotionally impactful thing we've had, more so even than like the murder and Virgil's suicide attempted Better Luck Tomorrow, mostly because it comes from I think the best action we've seen so far in the franchise. you're kind of on like your edge of your seat with this chase scene that's going on, and Han's death is so out of the blue and cold, and the fact that he dies from what I'll say is you find out more about his death in later installments. For the purposes of this movie, his death, he's just blindsided by a third party. He's just hit during a chase. He's not killed by the villain. He's not even killed super directly by the actions of a villain. He just gets they're driving fast and he gets hit and dies. And it's a death that is dramatic with the explosion, but I think it's like the first time that it fully hits home how dangerous the lifestyle is, because like you have Jesse get killed in the first one when he bets for pink slips and runs away with the car, but like I don't know, it's just the first time that like it feels like Han didn't do anything wrong and he just dies anyway, because that's just when you're driving like that and living like that, it's gonna happen.
And you're in the real world, and there's
immediately
real people driving around.
Yeah, it's the first time there's really a car-related death. And you're like, oh, these characters aren't invincible. And I think like tonally for the rest of the series, it's the most you feel like, oh, these guys could die. There's stakes.
And because it's also the first character that like you mentioned Jesse in the first one. That's his name, right? Jesse.
Yeah, I think so.
But he's more of a side character, and he's a very likable character, and I would say you grow to love him in the movie. And I do think his death is impactful, but Han is like such a central part of this movie and such a part of the soul of the movie, I'd say, that when you see this scene and when you see his death, it's like that makes it a little bit more shocking than anything else we've seen to this point, because it's like the most we've seen someone that instrumental to the plot and to what's actually happening in the movie just get knocked out like that.
Completely out of the blue. Like there's no real way to see it coming. There's not like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you can tell when a character's in a movie to die. You're like, oh, their arc is going to result. He just dies. He's just there and then he's gone.
If anything,
really,
like
really
I like that just because it feels more real in the end.
Well, yeah,
there and then he's gone. Aside from
real.
The explosion, I guess, but
you gotta give it a fast movie still. He can't just die in a car crash. It's a car crash, then the car explodes. It also does. That's also the same chase where Sean perfects his drift for the first time, and he like drifts through a crowd, in the middle of the street without hitting anyone, and that's a great moment. It looks cool, and it's super like he did it. Han, he was able to perfect it on Han's teaching before, in the same scene, that same chase that kills Han. So the movie ends with on the mountain, DK is initially leading in the race, but Sean's practice and training allow him to catch up. Desperate, DK rams Sean repeatedly. DK eventually misses on an attempt to ram Sean and subsequently drives off a cliff, crashing as Sean crosses the finish line. Kamada honors his word, banishing his son from the country of Japan. Sorry, his nephew from the country of Japan. While Sean, now dubbed the new Drift King, remains in Tokyo. Neela, Twinkie, and Sean, now driving a Nissan Silvia S15 Spec R, enjoy themselves at a car meet when Dominic Toretto arrives in a 1970 Plymouth Roadrunner to challenge Sean to a race. Sean hesitates but accepts after Dom proclaims that Han was family.
I do love that he shows up and he says that he's family. My first feeling of family.
Yes, so you get a bit of a... Honestly, this is kind of... I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative before that was cool. And I think it's better, honestly. I'm here to talk... Dom shows up in
to you
Japan
about the family.
to tell this high schooler he's here to talk to him about family. This is Iron Man recruiting Spider-Man to the Avengers. This is, that's what it is.
And then we never see Spider-Man again, except for cameos.
Oh my god. Know what I'm thinking about right now? They compared this MCU movies, the first one at least, to John. They were trying to say they were inspired by John Hughes movies. Now I'm thinking about a Tokyo Drift directed by John Hughes.
That's not bad.
That would have been good. No shade to Justin Lin, but I would love to see whatever that would have looked like.
May I ask who the hell is making that scratching noise that I am constantly hearing?
I was just about to ask that question.
Matt?
It stopped. It stopped now.
It stopped now that we asked.
Oh.
Is that you,
I was
Matt?
I was trying to crack my jaw. I think I was moving my headset while I was doing that.
Oh, I didn't even hear it.
It's still currently happening right now.
Yeah. See, I'm adjusting my jaw right now.
Knock it off.
Can't be just the sound of you adjusting your jaw.
Let me know what that jaw do.
Okay.
Oh god damn.
I feel like Matt's just chewing on his mic.
Matt's trying to be like.
Oh, I have to chew on my headphones. The mic is built into the headset. It doesn't. I have to swallow my headset.
It's okay.
Matt got hungry and said,
I
gotta chew on something, man.
This'll do.
He started nibbling on that microphone like it was shredded wheat or something.
Of all things to use, shredded wheat is the food you went with.
I thought you were going to say tobacco. Tobacco would be a great example.
Well, no, shredded wheat's chewy.
We should get Matt hooked on Zins.
I don't know what that is.
Zins?
It's basically chewing tobacco, more or less.
It's like the vape of chewing tobacco.
Yeah, that's a good way to put
The vape of chewing tobacco? Okay.
Yeah, they're little pouches that have nicotine in them, and you put them in your mouth.
That sounds cool.
Suck on them.
Suck on those tobacco.
Okay, Matt. Did you guys like I think this is also a really good climactic race between DK
The race
and
is
Sean.
awesome.
Climactic race.
The race is great.
It's a cool setting. You can tell what's happening. It's really funny that there's a mix of high school friends cheering and disgruntled Yakuza.
Disgruntled. They're very disgruntled.
I'll give you disgruntle. Yeah, I got disgruntled to show you.
What the fuck?
We're derailing this whole thing.
Yeah, you want to see disgruntle?
What are you talking about? What are we laughing at?
I don't
My
know.
grundle.
Why is that funny?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good race scene.
Oh, those action packs. It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. I thought, yeah, it was a good culmination, given the what the movie was all about. The movie was about this grundle, wasn't it? No, the ending was good, man. I don't know. The last race was good. It was a good race. I was proud of Sean.
Better have been proud of me.
I was so proud of you, Sean. Sean, I've never been more proud of you.
Hell yeah.
And you know what? And I'm even gonna mention it on your wedding day. Everyone I talk to on your wedding day, I'm gonna look at them and say, man, I'm almost as proud as when you won that race.
When I went to Tokyo.
When he went to Tokyo, your family's gonna look at me and say, what the fuck are you talking about?
Should I put Sean on my phone as the Drift King?
The Drift King.
Yes.
Don't forget to talk about the Yakuza boss that I managed to kick his nephew out of the entire country of Japan.
Yeah, that's crazy. You won. You won a race, and apparently that gives you enough pull to kick out a Yakuza member's nephew.
Also, where's DK gonna go like live? Because you can't just like go to another country for
Hey, here's the thing. Don't matter. Don't care.
like.
It's his problem. It's his problem.
It's his problem now.
Get him off my turf, man. Get him off this white boy's Tokyo turf.
Tokyo turf.
That is a good question, though.
I'm picturing a future series in a few decades from now. They'll make a Cobra Kai-esque series where DK is now the protagonist. And he's open to do drift school.
I was thinking DK then went and moved in with Sean's mom.
Ooh.
Like full circle, Sean moved to Tokyo, then kicks DK out, and he lives with his mom.
That would be something.
What do you think? Hey, fellas, what do you think of that?
I thought you were going somewhere else with that originally. That's all I think.
Did you think I was going to say he fucked his mom?
Did you fucking fuck my mom?
No.
Fuck my mom?
Did you fucking fuck my mom?
Shout out Always Sunny, man. Pretty good show.
So how does everyone feel overall about the movie? It's like I said before, like it's kind of a mixed bag, and I couldn't fault someone for being like, I'm not feeling it, but it's just all is so chronically entertaining to me, and every scene is like, I just think to myself, how did we wind up here?
Yeah.
I think to me it's like it's enjoyably solid. It's definitely not my favorite Fast and Furious movie, but it also is one that I think makes up for it with its charm and like being its own independent thing for the most part. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is it being its own thing makes it, and also having its own like unique voice makes it just feel so much more entertaining when I watch it. I still wouldn't put it up there as like anywhere near my favorite. I'd say it's a good mid Fast and Furious movie. It's solid. There's not much that I can really say that I think destroys it entirely or makes it any less enjoyable than it could be.
Yeah, well, I would agree with pretty much what Sean said. I think like it's one of those things where like watching it, there's a bit of me that's like that enjoys that it's completely different and pretty much entirely disconnected from the main series, because it's kind of refreshing and it's kind of a nice change, and it's a good, fun little mostly isolated story. But that said, I also there's like kind of I'm kind of juggling two balls, because it's like the other part of me. That's what Charles Barkley said. I'm kind of juggling two balls on me. Cause the other side of me is like, yeah, but I also like, the main cast and the main story and what the way that the main cast interacts with each other is so iconic in a way now that it maybe wasn't at the time of this coming out, seeing as there were only 2 movies and Vin Diesel wasn't even in one of them. So, obviously maybe it wasn't as iconic and beloved as it is now, but it's kind of like you kind of miss it a little bit because you love those characters so much. You love Brian and you love Dom and Rome and all of those characters, that it's like going back to this one, it's almost a bit like, oh, like it just feels like filler almost in some sense. Not entirely. I don't want to sound like this movie's not worthwhile, because I do like it and I do think it's worth watching if you're watching the Fast and Furious franchise. But it's just a little bit like, it's like when the singer from a band goes off and does a side project and you're like, oh, this was cool, but like, I like the Beatles better still. They didn't have side projects until they left the band, but, You get the point. You get the gist.
I get the point. Yeah. Well, I recommend the movie to no one's surprise. It's pretty solid all around. The movie definitely, I would say, out of the Fast and Furious franchise, besides Better Luck Tomorrow, definitely is the most unique out of the entire series in terms of not only its setting but its personality. I'll say like the driving scenes, the racing is definitely the best in the series. And although most of the main characters that is are pretty forgettable. Characters like Han are fantastic. I'm so glad we get to see more of him. Spoilers down the line. And yeah, that's really it. Like this movie, the movie is just solid in general. So it's really like hard to talk about the movie itself. Like it's interesting to talk about like the time period it came out from, or what this movie built up to, or the circumstances around it. But as for the movie itself, it's just solid. Like you can't really like complain too much about it. You can't really say much about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it's nothing that you're gonna write home about necessarily, but it's there's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing bad about it. It's just like a solid, fun racing movie.
And now that I watched it, I now want to go back to a Chuck E. Cheese and play Need for Speed again.
Why Chuck E. Cheese?
Because that's where I played it, fucker.
Chuggy cheese. That's what I call it when Casey starts playing a nice chuggy little riff at band practice. Chuggy
I remember
cheese.
when they changed the mascot to Chuck E. Cheese to beat that like little shit.
Oh
that
my
runs
god.
around.
When he went on Ozempic, dude.
Yeah, oh my god, dude. It was
Fuck
so disappointing. Fuck that guy.
The fuck?
That was like the worst thing that they ever did.
I know.
Honestly, fuck Chuck E. Cheese for that. Right here, right now. Let's start a campaign.
Fuck Chuck E. Cheese.
I know.
Fuck.
Bring
Chuck E. Cheese,
back,
you're next.
Bring back the animatronics.
You. Hey.
Bring
Hey,
back
Charles.
the animatronics.
Hey, Charles.
Are you talking about the
Fuck
Italian chef?
You. Fuck you.
No, Charles. Chuck is short for Charles.
Oh.
Hey, Charles Eduardo Cheese, count your fucking days.
For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Chuck E. Cheese isn't a real guy. He can't sue us.
That's not what I was
threatening.
That's not what I was saying. Wait. First of all, do you not think companies could sue people?
Yeah, but I'm not.
That wasn't what I was getting at anyway.
I'm
But
threatening
I
an imaginary mascot.
If
We're
I
gonna
was
kill
saying
you, Chuck E.
Nintendo right
Cheese,
now
and we
I just
mean that
did, we may
literally.
get sued by them.
This is not a joke. This is not a joke, Chuck E. Cheese.
We're gonna kill you.
I didn't say anything bad about the company. I didn't say, hey, their pizza tastes like my nutsack, which, by the way, that was just an example of what I could be sued for saying. I'm not saying I haven't had their pizza. I don't know if I ever have, to be honest.
You probably wouldn't be sued for that anyways.
Yeah, because that's just an opinion.
I do agree with a lot of what Matt said. I do think this is the most unique Fast movie. It's the most, I mean, I think it goes down so far. It's easily the best car, chase scenes, race scenes. But looking ahead, I mean, maybe I'll change my mind as I rewatch them, but I think it may be in the conversation, even including future movies as the best for that. But it is easily also, it's like the first movie that feels like it has a director. Like the direction's not bad on the first two necessarily, don't get me wrong, but this one feels like a progression of Lin as a director from Better Luck Tomorrow to this, and it feels like it has a unique, obviously because of the setting, but just it has different visuals, it has style to it, and in the way the other ones I feel like are a lot more borrowing from past movies like Point Break. And this is, I'm sure, has its inspirations. All movies do, but it definitely stands out the most. It does have the weakest lead. I think it has the weakest love interest. Not the worst villain, I would still say Too Fast, Too Furious has the worst villain so far, whoever that even was. All I know is he had a cigar cutter.
The cigar cutter was the real villain we've made along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matt recommends the movie. Would you guys recommend the movie?
Oh yeah, I think I'd recommend it. It's a solid, good Fast and Furious movie.
The real villain is the cigar we cut along the way. Yeah, I like it. I recommend it.
I like it.
That's all you're getting from me. That's all you're getting from me, baby.
All right, well, I will too. I don't think it's the most essential, but
yeah, it's
and listen, I'm gonna like put in the caveat that you may not like it. I think like for me, the low light is just some of it. A lot of the stuff with women in this movie is not great. I'm not gonna lie to you there.
That's like the biggest thing is it's quite misogynistic. I would say.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
like,
they take
like the
a lot of that stuff from
care
that
about
era,
cars
and
is
it's really unfortunate.
cool. Yeah, and Han's great.
Yeah, I'll say I think like
character arc for Sean.
If you've seen some Fast and Furious movies, but you haven't seen this one and you enjoyed the other ones, you'll probably like this one. Like it's different, but I
seems to be very love or hate. Yeah.
But because like this movie, its tone is much different.
It's
because
very
it's
different,
very,
but I still
it's very
feel
like serious. Strangely enough, it's very.
It's
dramatic.
Not as witty, I'd say.
It's not witty at all. The movie is very much like it's very much about like Tokyo itself. Well, technically, you watch the movie for the racing and the setting, because that's honestly what the movie has going for it. And if you like those things, then you'll like it. But when it comes to like the overarching story of Fast and Furious, it's like the least important, I would say. The least important out of the any entry into the Fast and Furious series, which you could consider like a black sheep, but I would say it's still worth watching.
Well said, Matt. On that note, thank you to ALOFET, ALOFETT for the podcast artwork. Thank you to Jason for the podcast music.
I did the podcast music. The Upsides PA. On Instagrizzy, the underscore Upsides PA on Twitter. Upsides on SoundCloud. There's not much up there right now, but I'll put stuff up eventually. I'm busy right now. I'm working on other things mostly. The other things mostly being my band Faraday. Check us out on Instagram at Faraday Band PA.
No.
We're working on recording demos, so hopefully we'll have some kind of music available soonish. And hopefully we'll be playing shows soon. Hopefully this summer. So
please follow Culture Illiterate on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe to Culture Illiterate Podcast on YouTube. Follow at illiterate_pod. That's the @ for any socials we have. Reach out to us at cultureilliteratepod@gmail.com. Rate us, do all that stuff. Next episode, we're covering the next installment, Fast and Furious. And you may be thinking, didn't you already cover that? Was that not the first one? You're fucking stupid. No, we have covered The Fast and The Furious, which is just so dramatically different than Fast and Furious. No thes and an ampersand instead of AND. I can't believe anyone would make that mistake. The nomenclature of these movies makes so much sense. It's not like this is Halloween 1978 and Halloween 2018. So Fast and Furious, or Fast and Furious 4, if you want to call it that. 2 weeks from today, next episode. See you then.
No.